She ran on as fast as she could. A whole regiment of snowflakes rushed against her. They did not fall from the sky, for it was quite clear, with the northern lights shining brightly. These flakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came, the larger and more terrific they grew. They were the advance guard of the Snow Queen. Some looked like large, ugly porcupines, others like knots of snakes, and others like bears with hair on end. All were of dazzling whiteness, all were alive. Little Gerda repeated the Lord's Prayer. The cold was so great that her breath froze as it came out of her mouth. It grew thicker and thicker till it formed itself into bright little angels that grew bigger and bigger when they touched the earth. All had helmets on their heads and spears and shields in their hands. More and more of them appeared, and when Gerda had finished the Lord's Prayer, she was surrounded by a whole legion. They pierced the snowflakes with their spears and shivered them into 1,000 pieces. So little Gerda walked on bravely and in safety through them. The angels patted her hands and feet, and then she hardly felt how cold it was, but went on quickly toward the palace of the Snow Queen. Now we shall see what Kay was doing. He was not thinking of Gerda, least of all that she stood before the palace. The walls of the palace were of driven snow, and the doors and windows of piercing winds. There were more than 100 halls there, shaped just as the snow had drifted. The largest one stretched for many miles, and all were lit up by the cold, precise northern lights. All were so large, so empty, so icy, and so glittering. In the middle of the empty, endless hall of snow was a frozen lake, cracked in 1,000 pieces. And in the middle of this lake sat the Snow Queen when she was at home. Then she said she was sitting on the mirror of reason, and that this was the best and only thing in the world to rest on. Little Kay was quite blue with cold, but he did not know it, for the Snow Queen had kissed away his feelings, and his heart was a lump of ice. He was pulling about some sharp, flat pieces of ice, which he laid together in all possible ways, puzzling out how to make something with them. He fitted them into a great many shapes, and shapes the most complicated, for they were the ice puzzles of reason. In his eyes, the figures he made were exceedingly beautiful and of the utmost importance, but this was because of the bit of glass which was still in his eye. Moreover, no matter how many wonderful words he could shape the ice into, the word he wanted most of all he could never make them spell. That word was eternity. The Snow Queen had said, "If you can shape out that word, you shall be your own master, and I will give you the whole world and a pair of new skates besides." But he could not puzzle it out. "I am going now to the warm lands," said the Snow Queen. "I must power my black kettles." This is what she called the volcanoes, Vesuvius and Etna. "It does the lemons and grapes good." Then away she flew, and Kay sat alone in the empty halls trying to solve his ice puzzle. There he sat so stiff and immovable, one might have thought him frozen. Suddenly little Gerda stepped through the great portal of cutting winds into the palace. She repeated her evening prayer, and the winds dropped as if lulled to sleep. Then she entered the vast, empty, cold halls. There she beheld Kay, and knew him at once. She flung her arms around his neck, held him fast, and cried, "Kay, sweet little Kay, have I found you at last?" But he sat quite still, stiff and cold.